Hi everyone, welcome back. In this video, we will understand microservice best practices. These are key principles for building scalable and maintainable microservices. Let's go step by step in the proper order. The first best practice is separate data store. Each microservice should own its own database. For example, service A should have its own database and service B should have its own database. We should avoid direct shared database access between services. This improves loose coupling and allows each service to scale independently. If multiple services directly depend on the same database, changing one service can easily break another service. So the better approach is one service, one data store. The second best practice is similar level of maturity. Services should be grouped with comparable stability. Stable production services should not be tightly mixed with new experimental services. For example, we may have stable services, growing services, and new experimental services. If we mix experimental and mission-critical code too tightly, maintenance becomes difficult. Keeping similar maturity levels together helps maintenance and release planning. The third best practice is separate build for each service. Each microservice should have its own build pipeline. Service A, Service B, and Service C should be built independently. This supports independent CI/CD and independent deployment. It also gives faster releases because one team does not have to wait for all other services. And it creates fewer dependencies between teams. The fourth best practice is single responsibility. One service should do one business capability well. The logic should be focused and small. For example, a catalog service should focus only on catalog-related work. It should not become responsible for many unrelated business features. When a service has a clear responsibility, it becomes easier to test, update, and replace. The fifth best practice is deploy in containers. Microservices should be packaged in containers. For example, Service A, Service B, and Service C can each run inside separate containers. Containers give consistent environments across development, testing, and production. This makes deployment more reliable. It also makes scaling and portability easier. The sixth best practice is treat services as stateless. A microservice should not keep session state inside the service instance. Instead, state should be stored in databases or caches. For example, multiple service instances can serve requests from the client. If the state is stored outside the service, any service instance can handle the request. This makes horizontal scaling easier. If one service instance goes down, another instance can continue processing requests. The seventh best practice is domain-driven design. Services should be designed around business domains. Use bounded context and align services with real business capabilities. For example, orders, payments, and users can be separate business domains. Each domain should have clear ownership and responsibility. This keeps the system closer to the business model and easier to understand. The eighth best practice is micro frontends. For large applications, the front end can also be split into smaller independent parts. For example, payments UI and orders UI can be separate front-end parts. These parts can be connected through an API gateway or shell. This allows teams to own features end-to-end. It also gives better modularity for large applications. The ninth best practice is orchestrate microservices. Microservices should be managed using orchestration platforms like Kubernetes. An orchestrator works like a control plane. It manages Service A, Service B, Service C, and many more services. Orchestration helps automate scaling, recovery, and rollout. It also improves resilience and operations. So let's quickly revise all 9 best practices. Separate data store, similar level of maturity. Separate build for each service. Single responsibility. Deploy in containers. Treat services as stateless. Use domain-driven design. Use micro frontends for large frontend applications. And orchestrate microservices using platforms like Kubernetes. The final goal is simple: independent services, clear ownership, easy scaling, and faster delivery. That is microservice best practices explained in a simple way.